Welcome to Occasional Randomness. I'm your host, Eric Scott, and joining me, as always, is my fellow co-host, someone who can get you a good deal on a used droid, only slightly scratch and dented, Jason Johnson.
Yeah, so there may be some assembly required, but I'm sure we can get you there by the end of the episode. Maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, if you want to buy the top half now, we can put the bottom half later.
Yeah, well, you can do half on layaway.
Yeah,
Like they used to tell me on the vehicles I used to look at, it has a driveway warranty. Once you clear the driveway, you're on your own. So,
yeah, you can probably buff those scratches and dents out. It's no problem.
yeah.
Be as good as new. More on that at the very end of this podcast, but yeah, so this time around we'll be covering the third of 4 chapters in season 2 of Star Wars Andor. And after this, there's only 3 episodes left to go, which
Which is a good thing because I'm having trouble dodging spoilers at this point. So,
I know, right? And in today's streaming world, 12 episodes seems like an eternity. But in this case, I wish we had more episodes because we're loving this thing. I mean, I wish it could be like an old school series of like 22 episodes a season, but it's not. We get 12, and they're good. They're good 12, and I guess we'll see where they go next in the Star Wars TV universe. Don't know, but hopefully, like most of them have been so far, they'll be great.
yeah, because I'm sure we can talk about this more at the end as we wrap up. But, we've had was it Tales of the Underworld drop while we were doing this, and other than that, I don't think there's anything out there planned. I think they're bringing back Ahsoka, and there's the Darth Maul animated series. But yeah, we're kind of in a dearth of Star Wars right now. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's kind of these supposed movies coming out next year, like maybe The Mandalorian, this mythical new trilogy. Who knows, right? So we'll we'll see where it goes. And our little public service announcement, as always, if you like what we do here, please give us a like or a review. We would appreciate it. Or better yet, help spread the word and let people know all about this fine podcast here. We would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Let's jump right into the recaps here. So, Star Wars Andor Season 2, Episode 7, Messenger. 1 year later, surprise.
Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, wow, that's new. The rebels have begun coordinating military operations on Yavin 4, where Cassian and Bix now live. Wilmon stops by and tells them that Dedra is on Ghorman, where rebel activities have been portrayed by state-sponsored media as terrorism instigated by outside agitators. Wilmon encourages Cassian to help assassinate Dedra, and despite his concerns over the mission being from Luthen, Cassian agrees and travels with Wilmon to Ghorman. Bix, meanwhile, is told by a Force healer that Cassian will be vital to the rebellion. On Ghorman, Dedra finds her position temporarily supplanted by Captain Cato, who was sent by Major Partagaz to oversee the Imperial subjugation of the planet, and Cyril begins to doubt Dedra's story on outside agitators, given his interactions with rebels as seen previously.
Which drops us into episode 8. Who are you? Now I have a song stuck in my head.
Yeah, right.
Cato instigates a protest in Palmo's Central Square while closing off the available exits, and intentionally deploys inexperienced riot police into the volatile crowd. Arriving in the square alongside the protesters, Cyril realizes his role in enabling the Empire's manipulative actions and violently confronts Dedra in her office, forcing her to tell him the truth about the Empire's intentions on Ghorman before he storms out. Following a directive of Partagaz, Dedra reluctantly orders an Imperial sniper to open fire on a member of the riot police unit, triggering a shootout between the rebels and Imperial forces. Protesters attempt to flee, but are massacred either by Imperial blaster fire or KX security droids. Amidst the chaos, a dazed Cyril wanders the square as Cassian seeks to assassinate Dedra through her office window. The two fight, and Cyril gains the upper hand, but hesitates to shoot Andor before being fatally shot by Caro Rowlands, the Ghorman rebel leader. The Resistance manages to incapacitate a KX enforcer droid by ramming it with an armored transport. Cassian escapes the Ghorman with the droid, while Wilmon stays to aid his Ghorman girlfriend Drina in broadcasting the news to the galaxy. In the aftermath, Dedra and Edie, Cyril's mother, separately confront their losses as Imperial news outlets place blame on outside agitators.
And the final story this year is Episode 9, Welcome to the Rebellion.
6,
Well, it says 6,
9.
but it's really 9
Oh, crap. Sorry, I shouldn't have jumped in. My bad.
because I have slight editing problems and I forgot that one.
Well, then I will shut up and let you go again.
So there, now it says 9.
Somehow 9 returned. Anyway.
Yeah. So, episode 9. Welcome to the rebellion. It's all live, folks. In the aftermath of the Ghorman massacre, the Empire frames the incident as an insurrection. Mon Mothma writes up a Senate speech against the Emperor and prepares to flee to Yavin 4. Senator Bail Organa chooses to stay behind to aid the rebellion in secret. Luthen learns from Lieutenant Young that Bail's security team is compromised and assigns Cassian to extract Mon from Coruscant. Meanwhile, Luthen clashes with Mon over the depth of his subterfuge within the rebellion and his choice to have Tay killed. Remember that guy from episode 1?
Yeah, we didn't think that'd come back.
Yeah, so hey, now we finally know. With Bail's help, Mon takes the floor of the Senate and powerfully condemns Emperor Palpatine and the genocidal Empire's manipulation of the truth. Cassian successfully convinces Mon to leave with him, killing the spy in Bail's rival security team, and also Mon's ISB-planted driver, Cloris. He brings Mon to the safe house on Coruscant, where she publicly positions herself with the rebellion. Cassian accompanies an injured Wilmon back to Yavin 4. Disturbed by recent events, Cassian resolves to leave and begin a new life with Bix, but Bix leaves during the night, leaving Cassian a message that implores him to stay and help the rebellion, and promises that she will find him again once it succeeds. Later, technicians have reprogrammed K2SO, the stolen KX droid, to serve the rebellion. Alright, so yeah, it seems like this kind of mirrors how they did the first season, but the setup so far kind of mirrors the last 6 episodes from the last season, and everything's like coming to a head now. Things have really moved along in these 3 episodes, which will hopefully lead to an amazing conclusion next time. So what do you think of this year? I mean, these 3 episodes of Andor.
Yeah, so it does seem to be their method that this show's going to have the really slow burn right up until this point, right? And it's like the first half is like all the pieces get moved around. Although we've had some really like dramatic scenes, it seems like now it's like back to back, just action, and everything's just all at once. We'll dive into it as we go, I'm sure, but there were many things this year that I saw coming, but there were several that they would then, as soon as I assumed I knew what was going on, they turn it on its head at the last minute. I'd be like, oh, that was a good way to twist it. So kind of a neat approach.
Yeah, because with like any show, you have to set it up, right? And then, like we said, at least we have 12 episodes of these each season versus 8. Otherwise, they would really set things up pretty quickly. So it's nice to have a little like slow time to burn things in, right? Have like an episode or two to get you familiar with stuff instead of like 10 minutes in the first episode.
Which is an interesting point, right? Because I feel like the focus lately has been on like 8 episode arcs. And you wouldn't think that the couple episode difference would make that big of a deal. But I feel like them being able to take a full 6 episodes to really set up all the pieces and then still have half the season to play with seems to make a lot more effective storylines than I think we've seen on some of the 8-parters, at least that the most recent ones.
Yeah, I mean, it just gives you a little more time to flesh the story out or flesh the characters out some more because sometimes you're like, how did that person get from there to there? Like, what motivation? Huh? Okay, sure, whatever. So,
Well, and part of it may just be this the effectiveness of the Andor show, right? Because there's several spots where even though we have an episode where not a lot happens, there's a lot that happens, and you're
mm,
like, you're like, well, we were in the jungles of Yavin 4 with this random crew for so long. It's like, did that actually further the story? But there's so many little pieces that you're like, oh yeah, that did come back and be a cool piece, or they just do such an effective job of using that or making it interesting that you're like, yeah, I'm good. Even if those rebels, that group of rebels doesn't come back, the fact that we got to see behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes, but a different piece of the rebellion that we haven't seen before makes it interesting. So
hmm Yeah, because I mean, both seasons have been amazing and they've kept your attention. I mean, the first season, like the first episode was kind of boring and then it like ramped up in like the second episode, whatever. So yeah, so they did the slow burn, they built things up, and then it's like okay, now it's like warp speed, like or hyperspeed, hyperspace. We're like going, it's like we're good. Like from now on, it's buckle up, here we go. And yeah, I mean, like you said, there's a few things that I saw coming too in these 3 episodes, and some I didn't actually, which we'll get into. But yeah, I mean, next time we do this, it'll be it, and I'll be sorry to see it end. But that's how things work. There's a beginning, there's an ending.
Yeah, and this is one of the few cases where I think it's unfortunate that we're running right up into where we know these characters have to end up. Right, we know the results of Cassian's story in Rogue One, and it seems unlikely that they can find a way to bring him back unless they revisit this timeline, right? The in between years or something, like what happens between year one and this year and next year or something like that. But you're definitely dealing with a limited time frame because the character has to end up on Yavin for Rogue One. It's the unfortunate way that this story worked out, even though it's been good to get all this backstory.
Yeah, or they pull a George Lucas and he like reworks Rogue One's ending to where he doesn't, they don't die, but hey, who knows, right? But it's sci-fi,
Yeah,
anything's possible.
that flash washes over them. And they just happen to be standing behind the right wave that blocks it, and
Yeah.
they walk out.
So yeah, so let's kind of go through the stories. And now, before we're kind of doing like each kind of storyline separately because they were kind of isolated. Now, as we've mentioned by things being jam-packed, they're not quite as isolated as they were before. So I guess we'll just do the old school way and just go through each episode. So yeah, we open this year on Yavin 4, which is quite the bustling place now. The rebellion's growing to more of what we see it to be in the films, which is basically a year later at this point, or a year and a half later at this point. So it's kind of nice to flesh that out, that they've done so well with these, prequel series. They flesh out what happened between A and B, which I love, and we do kind of show that you didn't see in the movies, but people are living outside of those huge ziggurats on Yavin 4, out in the jungle, including Cassian and Bix now. Although, yeah, to your point with the rebels on episode 2 or whatever, what happened to that nasty creature that like attacked and killed the entire commando team back in episode 2? Are they not a problem anymore? Have they all been pacified? Are they scared of lots of people and just don't want to encroach on the territory? I don't know, but whatever.
Well, when you have that many people living in one place, you've got to feed them somehow. So
True.
maybe they've just been hunted for food supplies to feed the Yavin growing population of Yavin. Yeah, I guess I didn't catch, and maybe you just solved one of my gripes, which was I didn't catch that anybody besides Cassian and Bix were living in the jungle. Like I thought everybody else was kind of on base, and that was going to be one of my gripes was that why were they outside living in a hut in the jungle? Nice hut, but when everybody else was basically in quarters on base, it just I don't know. That seemed odd, but I guess if they weren't the only ones, I missed it.
Yeah, I think it seemed like maybe it was because later when they go to like the force healer thing, it's more like an open air kind of thing. So it's like outside of the big complex. So it sounds like there's like at least little encampments maybe close by. I don't know how far out they are from the big pyramid there, but
Not too far because he's able to run to the U wing that we see later in the
yeah, true.
so
Yeah, so maybe it's close enough, and the creatures don't like the ziggurats because they're like I don't know, mystical, or they're just afraid of them. I don't know, who knows? Or yeah, they're lunch right now. So, and then yeah, our good old buddy, impulsive buddy Wilmon shows up, fresh from his little stint on Ghorman, helping the rebels, and he's got important news. Deidre's there, and she's plotting something, and of course he wants Cassian to help him assassinate her. Cassian's like, yeah, yeah, it's a job from Luthen. I'm kind of done with him. I don't really want to do anything. He's kind of even done with the rebellion, which we'll get into here in a second. But I guess he agrees that okay, sure, I'll do this for you. I mean, obviously we know from what we just mentioned that he's in for the duration. But it is kind of fun to see him kind of wrestle with: does he stay at the rebellion? Does he stay with Luthen? Does he just want to just pack it all up and go? So it's kind of fun to fill in the gaps of the hero journey, I guess. And he kind of borrows, like you said, a U-wing, which may be the same one from Rogue One. I don't know, maybe not.
eh, it's Star Wars. It's definitely the same one.
it's
Yeah,
it's the same digital model. Yeah.
it's well, I mean, it's economies of scale. You always if Cassian has a ship, he's going to have that ship forever. It's not like in other Star Wars shows of recent time, we've seen him blow up an iconic ship, like maybe a Razor Crest or something. And I'm not I'm not bitter. I promise I'm not bitter. But anyway, sorry. Yeah, I do have to mention that it's one of the things I like about here is that it's interesting to see that Luthen, while he was so plugged into the rebellion and looked upon favorably, like at the wedding and other places like that, that he seems to be almost be on the outskirts of the rebellion, not quite the Saw Gerrera level of outside where he's an extremist, but he's definitely losing favor with the more organized and formal rebellion groups on Yavin.
Yeah, because you kind of wonder like how, like each cell, like originally the rebellion's a bunch of cells spread out, so obviously the typical thing, if you catch one, you can't get them all, right? So it's like, yeah, how much control, how much autonomy does each one have to do something? Versus, I know Luthen sent Wilmon to Saw, but Saw could do his own stuff. He could be like, no, I don't care about you. I'm gonna do my own thing, right? Yeah, so and now they're kind of trying to become the more formal military force with a structure and a presence in one place versus all over the place. So it's fun to see the evolution of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's the transition from rebellion to the rebel alliance, right?
Hmm.
The alliance of rebel cells that we see. It's always hilarious for me to reference the animated continuity, but in Rebels, because Hera starts forming. I'm gonna blank on what her squadron was.
Ghost Squadron,
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
No,
Yeah,
yeah. When she
Ghost
joins
was a
up
ship.
with
Yeah,
the
right.
Ghost was a ship, and they called themselves Ghost whatever's, but when she actually joined up with the Rebel cell, it was Phoenix Squadron, and so Phoenix Squadron is another one that would get folded into the Alliance part of it when they start falling under Mon Mothma and I guess General Dodonna at some point and all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, and then before Cassian goes off on his little adventure on Ghorman, he and Bix have an encounter with a Force healer in camp, who, while trying to heal him, seems to sense that Cassian is, important to the rebellion. He's, vital to their success. See Rogue One, but yeah. She either does or doesn't try to heal his old blaster wound. I couldn't tell if it worked or he was just freaked out that maybe it did work. I don't know. Again, given how things are going right now, she's probably not a true Jedi because everybody thinks they all got wiped out, 20 years prior. So she's probably more like a force sensitive person who knows she has some kind of healing skills and she's offering it to the rebels or something. Again, Cassian kind of gets freaked out by the whole thing and wants nothing to do with her or just wants to run away. And Bix at this point is starting to get kind of really mad at Cassian for all his overprotectiveness and indecisiveness and kind of stubbornness. So it's got more lovers' quarrels here.
my take was that it did actually heal him. I guess we'll see if that wound gets referenced anywhere else, but and that was the part that freaked him out, right? You see him back at their house, working his shoulder and like you say, being really freaked out. And I just read that as it worked, and he was not wanting to admit it because of everything else that came along with the, you know, somebody who can actually randomly heal you. I mean, that's like you say, that's becoming unusual at this point in time.
Yeah, it could be. Although not going on a side tangent, but I've always been amazed how like everyone forgot all about the Jedi. It's only been like 15, 20 years because Luke's what, 18 in like 2 years when the so it's like it's only been like maybe 15 years and people have already forgotten about it. But anyway, whatever.
Yeah, that's when we just have to kind of pass away, right? I, again, we could do a whole episode on my retelling and headcanon of how the prequels should have been done because I would have liked for like, Obi-Wan to just be involved in the Clone Wars and run across an adult fighter pilot Anakin and train him because Yoda trained him in secret, not that the Jedi were this, thousands of Jedi across the Empire, or you know, um, not Empire. It would have
Republic.
been the Republic. Thank you. I blanked on it. But even then, it would have been obscure and so mythical. And now it's like, no, like you say, how do you forget there were like 1,000 of them on Geonosis at one point, like fighting only 30 years ago? Like, come on.
Yeah, but well, I guess that's how good the Empire is at crushing information. Yeah, well, that's it.
Well, as we'll see, they do seem to have some significant media control. So maybe that'll be something we see in a minute.
Yeah. And yeah, moving on to Gorman, which we'll get into more here in a bit. Cyril and Deidre start having doubts about the whole thing on both their ends of the little mission here. She's in charge, but not really in charge of handling the rebels and the how to handily take over the planet. And Cyril has finally realized that she's not telling him everything and is even lying to him. Shocker. From a spy. What? So yeah, so much for our young love on the Imperial side, which yeah, I mean, it kind of parallels interestingly that the kind of rift between our rebel lovebirds, Cassian and Bix, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and you're making me feel like I should go back and rewatch all these again because I didn't pick up on that, but that's kind of a really good take. You know, we know that Bix is not there when we hit Rogue One timeline, but I was thinking something bad was going to happen to her at this point. But um, yeah, maybe we'll see something similar with Cyril and Deidre as it goes forward. Obviously somebody's got to get taken out of the picture on the romantic pairing side to set the other one up for their dramatic storyline, right? So
Hmm. Yeah, and then kind of things start to go to pieces. So the action ramps up here on Ghorman. Well, I mean, if you're the Ghorman rebels, the Ghorman citizenry, and the rebel adjacent people, yeah, it's all gone to pieces. If you're the Empire, it's all going perfectly to plan. So,
well, actually, it depends on which part of the empire you are, right?
yeah, I mean, if you're those poor wet behind the ears security team that was just deployed there, not so well. And that I did see coming. I knew that they were going to be sacrificed. Basically, I figured their inexperience, they would do something stupid to start the riot, or they would be used to start the riot. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And then something else, what you get to here after this, though, I definitely did not see coming.
Yeah, I agree. They made it clear they were fodder. But two things I'll mention, and I think one of them was a little bit later. But I enjoyed seeing the propaganda media broadcasting. You've got the reporters saying one thing to the camera while as Cyril and other people are walking around the square, you see the exact opposite happening. But just the fact that because the camera only sees what they want it to see, it's an interesting take on media propaganda and what lens we see events through. The part I didn't see coming was while they telegraphed the inexperienced troops, I did not think that or didn't see that they were going to have a sniper shoot one of them, which is what set off the riot later. So that part really surprised me.
Yeah, I thought that someone would shoot somebody, and then yeah, it would definitely go sideways, and yeah, just wouldn't think it'd be friendly fire, although I guess not really friendly if you were purposely
Well, that
purposely shot at.
it guarantees control, right? They couldn't just wait for the natives to do it. They have to.
Yeah, you have to like,
to
just nudge it a little further. So,
yep.
and then yeah, to the point if we made before, Cyril has stormed out, and I don't know if he's gone native, so to speak, or he's just seems to care more about the rebels than maybe his little mission here. Or maybe he's confused and not quite sure where his loyalties are at. So, he's out there wandering around. I don't know what he thought was going to happen to the rebels when he got this little job. Did he think he would just be helping them do like limited staged things that the Empire kept telling him, "Hey, have them go attack the depot." Okay, yeah, and we'll take we'll send them in later to like run them off and everything look great. To like I don't know what to get sympathy for the Empire. Did he not think at some point the rebels would outlive their usefulness and be attacked and killed, or that there was a larger plan than just, hey, feed them information? I don't know. He's a little naive in some respects.
Oh, yeah, I completely think he's naive. I didn't take it as him going native as much as again how well they deceived him at what he thought his actual mission and message was. Right. My take on Cyril is he's a true believer. Right. He believes in the Empire cause, but not the ISB's imperial cause, but like the Empire as the true utopia of civilization. Right. He thinks it's the right way to do it, and it should make everybody's life better. And I think in a sense he thinks he's like the Empire's version of James Bond. He's there to, he may have to do some dirty work, but he's there to make the Empire better. And instead he was as deceived as the Gorm were, and when it was revealed to him what the operation's true intention were. And that's the part that I thought, and this was the one they got me on. When he gets that moment where he breaks with Deidre, I thought that Cyril might actually end up joining the rebellion when he sees that the Empire is not making the lives of the citizenry better. Um, and I half expected him to leave Gorm with Cassian.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Versus what happened, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But yeah,
yeah, I don't think we're going to get there. So
yeah, nah, maybe not. And then yeah, obviously on the other side of the little coin here, Deidre, who knows the whole plan, from day one. I don't know what she thought either. Like, did she not see what was going to happen, or she couldn't handle? Which probably, I mean, ordering someone to get killed is not a thing you do every day. So she just not handle the dirty work of starting the final insurrection. But yeah, like, what did she think was going to happen? Like, along with Cyril, what did she think was going to happen to the Gorman citizens? That they would just be rounded up and moved off planet before this like massive planetary strip mining starts, or they'd just be moved to parts of the planet that weren't unaffected, which sounds like what they're explaining, like the whole planets could be affected. So like, what did she think was going to happen? But then again, in the end, she does her duty, gives the order, and the fireworks begin. So
Yeah, so my take on this one's I think she knew the outcome, but she didn't expect it to actually affect her, right? Like it's one thing to plan something out. It's another to see it when it actually happens around you, and you're actually on the ground seeing the people be affected by it. Which I think adds a lot of depth, right? Because it shows that she is actually human and not like a stereotypical mustache twirling villain. A lot of times in Star Wars we get the obviously the Emperor and Vader to an extent, but you have your man, I'm just all over with the names tonight. Admiral Grand Moff Tarkin. That's who I was looking for. It destroys an entire planet and doesn't even bat an eye. And here we have somebody who's like, she was okay. She came up with some of the scheming to help destroy the planet because that's eventually what's going to happen to Ghorman. But being on the ground and seeing it, she actually can feel pain and it actually affects her, which is one of the things I think that makes this show so compelling.
yeah, they aren't just like single dimensional characters. They have depth and a conscience to some degree or whatever. Yeah, so it's fun. And then, yeah, Wilmon, of course, has fallen in love with a Gorman rebel, uh, which probably explains his eagerness to want to get Cassian's help, and definitely his unwillingness to leave at the end. Like, dude, you really need to get out of there, but whatever. That's our Wilmon. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I guess if you're going to have a type, that's one to have, right? I mean, he's consistent in his consistently finding somebody to love. So
yeah, and one day that's gonna probably get him killed. And as we see next episode, it just might actually. So,
yeah, it might get him there.
yeah, and now on to the thing I did not see coming in this episode. So during the massacre in the square, Cassian obviously keeps missing his chance to shoot Deidre, and then of course the everything aligns. She's right there. He lines up the shot. You see him get her in the sights, and then Cyril just happens to recognize him and runs over and tackles him. And Cassian's like, "What? Well, what?" Like, he's totally surprised by what's going on, and fights back obviously. But Cyril does get the best of him actually. But then he's got the gun trained on him. He can't quite bring himself to shoot him. And then probably the funniest line in the middle of all this chaos is Cassian, which I laughed out loud, where Cassian like looks at him with this confused look on his face, and it's like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not only title drop, but like, oh yeah, I forgot about that part.
Yeah. And then he gets shot and killed by the rebel leader. So yeah, I definitely did not think that they would kill Cyril. To your point, I thought something would happen to him, but not, that he would get killed. And then to Cassian's like complete amazement or complete like shock or awe of like, what? Huh? Confusion. Yeah, thinking about it, looking back at last season, yeah, he has no idea who Cyril is because they never met. So this is all like Cyril's obsession with Cassian, not Cassian has no clue what this guy is.
Yeah, so my obviously same here. This was one. As I've said a minute ago, I didn't see that part coming because I love the way that they were walking around the square, passing each other as they were just kind of moving around. Cassian trying to get his shot, Cyril just kind of overwhelmed by the environment, and I really thought this was going to be the place where Cyril broke and joined the rebellion. Instead, like you said, that they killed him, and they didn't just kill off a main character; they killed him off with a lot of show to go. I mean, we're not done with this year yet, much less an entire year, 3 episodes worth to go. So there's a lot of show to lose a main character that's been with us since season one.
Yeah, and I know obviously next 3 episodes will jump forward a year, but yeah, maybe we'll see has this affected Deidre anyway, like what she had to do to start the takeover, and then obviously the fallout with Cyril and him getting killed. Like, yeah, is she gonna blame it on herself? Is it gonna be a year later and she won't care anymore? Who knows, right? So it'd be interesting to see if they play it forward.
Yeah, is he important or is he a banker?
Yeah, right, exactly. Remember that guy that, And yeah, man, those KX security droids are nasty. I mean, they don't need blasters when they can just crush people and fling them, hundreds of yards, basically all over the place. Which probably a good thing they don't have weapons. They'd be a little
Yeah,
overpowered there.
but but they're armed.
Yeah, they got two big guns. Yeah,
That's right.
the gun shows. And then yeah, it did to me kind of seem like a forced way that Cassian would think to bring a partially destroyed droid back to the rebellion, though. Which I mean, okay, so that's the big moment where he and K2SO first meet. Okay, what do you think there?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I know we get Easter eggs, but this one was a little. Let's just pick up a random droid and bring him back and build a best friend out of him.
Yeah, I mean, we made the point of like they have extra episodes. Like it's not 8 episodes, it's 12, and basically, he sees these bunch of droids tearing apart the square. He runs away. One's chasing him. And he rams it with the speeder, and as he's going away, he's like, "Hey, I'll take it." I'm like, "Okay, sure."
Well, yeah, I mean, on one hand, I can totally see, yeah, these droids, like you said, are just tanks and they're just destroying everything. So if you got the opportunity to take one and try to make use of it, cool. But they also were making an emphasis on how chaotic the scene was. And that just seems like a really weird time to be like, hey, I know we're running for our lives, but y'all pick up this really heavy droid that's you know, going to take us a while to get to the ship. And let's focus on that instead of saving ourselves.
Yeah, and then like it took a lot of people to put it on the ship, and then he leaves by himself with K2SO and goes to his ship and leaves. And like, well, who helped him drag it from his the thing back to his ship? But whatever. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, yeah, good point. I mean, these things are beasts. So yeah, I mean, it does make sense that you might want to take one because hey, this could become handy, right? So little does he know how handy it will be.
Yeah, it'll be there right with him till the end.
Yeah, pretty much. And then we get our final episode of this year, the big political thriller. But before we get into the side elements of all that, the main plot basically is Mon getting to give her big speech condemning Palpatine and the Empire, and probably trying one last time to get people to see what's really going on and maybe sway them to do something or join the rebellion or whatever. So since that was kind of like interspersed of half the episode, what do you think about her speech and the things like around that, like the work crew that kind of kept the one Imperial flunky guy from shutting off the broadcast by like, who locked the door? Oh, yeah, we did. We fixed the problem. But it's always been open. No, it's supposed to be locked. We fixed the problem. So it's kind of funny, kind of office spacey kind of thing. So,
Well, and working in IT, that's exactly when you fix things, right? I mean, we'll leave a ticket out there to the last minute that it's like, oh, we had a minute to finally fix this thing you've been complaining about. What do you mean you're upset that it's not working now? That it's not open? You asked us to fix it like a year ago, and we finally had got to it.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Make up your mind, dude. What do you?
yeah, yeah. First you fuss because we don't do stuff anyway. Yeah, a little PTSD there. But I think the speech is fine. They did a good job of building up anticipation. But if I'm honest, if you ask me to look back and remember it and what I think, I was much more focused on the pieces of the scenery moving around, like the crew you mentioned, the different security teams maneuvering for place. Is Cassian going to be outside the right door at the right time? Are these three people who are coming through security? Which one of them is the actual bad guy, and which two are actually good? All the cool little spy thriller stuff we had going on in the misdirection as the pieces lined up. That held my attention way more than the speech did.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I probably couldn't even remember a line she said. I know, the reaction from the audience, and then, obviously the Imperial is going apoplectic, trying to like shut the feed down. But yeah, otherwise, I'm like, it's probably a good speech. I don't know. I'll have to go back and listen to it, I guess.
Exactly, exactly.
And hey, we got some more Bail Organa in this episode. Maybe the last time we'll see him. I don't know. He's gonna stay behind and not join Mon with the rebellion. I guess thinking he can still do something as a senator now that she dropped the Palpatine's evil speech. Maybe he can try to help do something with that. He did offer up a security team to help get Mon away. I thought it was kind of cool that you kind of see that the Empire already kind of knows who the potential troublemakers are, right? Like we have like all these different cutaway scenes of them obviously having all their Senate offices bugged, and even they have agents in their staff, like the her driver. So it's kind of fun. We kind of have our little good spy versus evil spy bits where Luthen gets tipped off. has Cassian go get Mon before Bail's security team because one of them, like he said, is working for the ISB. Which I still think that would be a great series, and maybe they'll do it, maybe not. Who knows, right? Kind of have like an espionage series with like ISB versus Rebellion Intelligence Network. Kind of like like our dueling James Bonds with Cassian and Cyril in the last episode, last season, last year, right? I think it'd be cool to have like a espionage themed Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's where this show is going to end with, but it's sad we only have 3 more episodes to get that right. I mean, there's so much stuff they could do, different characters they could use if we can't use these characters because, like I said, we know they're on a defined timeline. But I'm right there with you. If we can have a ISB Yavin or ISB Coruscant or something, where we have like, you can have like a whole different setup of like, maybe we can get, I don't know. Speaking of Bail Organa, would we get Jimmy Smits, or I don't even know the actor's name who's playing him in this series, but maybe have different ones of them play different Bails at different times, so you have like which one's which, a little spy thing going on, and so we could get that going, and then maybe on like a different planet we could have Scott Bakula come play one of the bosses, and maybe we get Mark Harmon to be one of. Anyway, we could do like ISB and Rebellion. They need a good acronym for the Rebellion. I'll have to come up with something for that. Do they have an
Yeah,
acronym for their intelligence guys?
I'm sure maybe in the Rogue Squadron novels they had a name for it. I don't know, but yeah,
Ooh, that's how. This is who they should use. They should use the Wrath Squadron guys and actually do that as the Rebellion intelligence guys.
yeah. There we go. We get your action space battles along with your sneaky wet work. It'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, Garrick Face Lauren, right? That was the guy's name. So
Yeah. So there we go. We just gave you guys a wonderful new series to put out.
checks in the mail.
Yeah, right, I'm sure. And then, harkening back to a question we had at the end of the first episode, I guess we do kind of finally know what Mon thinks about Luthen killing her banker friend, Tay, earlier this year. So, also having her chief of staff working for him. Spoiler alert, she's not a fan of either of those two things. She's really quite annoyed to say the least. So, but does ultimately listen to his warning and advice to not trust Bale's security team and go with the person he's sending to get her out, our man Cassian.
Which we know to be the right play, right? I mean, obviously we have the benefit of seeing the security guy from Bale's team turn on everybody else, and then we know that Cassian's on the up and up. But yeah, Luthen is just like, I don't know. He seems out there and getting further and further, as I mentioned earlier, from the rebellion. Right. This was the second bookend of him losing his sway on the main rebellion. Right. If you go back to earlier, I guess previous years, but earlier this season, and the interactions between Mon Mothma and Luthen on at the wedding, and her coming to the store and all that, they had a much different tone than they had here, where it was completely antagonistic.
Yeah, it's just
I don't
definitely evolved over the last season and this season. It's like, yeah, she was, they're all buddy buddy, and she was doing everything he said and what he wanted. Now she's like, yeah, I'm having questions about you now. Yeah.
Yeah. So as she rises to power with the rebellion, it's gonna be interesting to see how they, what happens to him.
Yeah, but she still listens to him, so she still at least trusts that he knows what he's doing. Now we'll see.
And
Well,
again, he was right,
yeah,
so that's a big move in his favor.
yeah, we'll see how it plays out in the next 3 episodes. But yeah, possibly or possibly not. Who knows? But yeah, we have no idea. We'll find out. And yeah, I thought for sure that Mon's chief of staff, who after he was revealed of working for Luthen, and then he was still hanging around and got in the way of Bale's hit team or hit person and Cassian, I thought for sure he was gonna get killed because someone would like react and start the gun the gun duel, and he'd get taken out first, right? But no, he actually helps and then kind of drops the blaster and kind of runs away with the crowd. So good job on him. Maybe we'll see him last 3 episodes. Maybe not. I mean, it's gonna be a year later, so obviously he won't be working on Coruscant in the Senate anymore because he's a marked person after this. Will he go to Yavin? I don't know. I mean, does Mon still want a chief of staff for the rebellion? I mean, she probably would throw out the airlock because she doesn't trust him anymore. But will he show up again? I don't know.
He can join Bail Organa's staff, right? I mean, uh, My assumption is if we don't see him again in the show, my headcanon is going to be that he's on the 10th of E4 when Vader boards and he dies bravely. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, or he was flying to Alderaan to deliver an important message to Bail, and then boom.
Oh,
So,
he was in Alderaan places.
that's right. Could be a title, maybe not.
Mm.
Not for this episode, I guess. Yeah. If we ever do a recap of the Star Wars movies, there we go.
Alderaan places or Alderaan pieces.
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
And then so Cassian gets back to Yavin with the badly wounded Wilmon, um, but kind of a roundabout way, which I'm kind of wondering. Again, just kind of made no sense to me. So Wilmon obviously got wounded on Ghorman, and they smuggle him from Ghorman to Coruscant. So somehow he got through all the security on Coruscant to get to the secret little apartment on Coruscant, where he's laying there in bed, like all jacked up. But they can't get anybody on a Coruscant, a planet of like billions of people, to help with the injuries. So they have to smuggle him off of Coruscant to Yavin for treatment. I'm like, how long is that round trip? Because he looks like he's about ready to die. So, I mean, you can't find anybody at all to help him before you have to ship him to another planet.
Yeah, all I got for that one's because plot. Because, yeah, I mean, they've got places that people can get repaired on Tatooine at this point. So surely on Coruscant you could get stuff.
Yeah, or just fly him right from Gorman to Yavin. Like, why have a stop off in Coruscant so that so Cassian can see him wounded and get all upset, and then okay, great, let's go. That's
Right.
that's the only thing that was there for.
Yeah, like I said, because plot.
Yeah, which I mean, indirectly, I guess it does kind of help Cassian. I guess he's like, okay, that's it, I'm done. I've had it with all this. My friends are getting hurt. What am I doing this for? I just want to leave. So I'm gonna leave with my girl Bix and start a new life on some planet far away. So he's telling her all this stuff. You know that we're going to go somewhere where the Empire has no influence. I'm like, where's that at this point, right? So I don't know where he thinks he's going to go. He tried that last season and immediately got picked up and jailed for however many months or whatever. Bix is trying to change his mind. He believes that he's critical to the rebellion, which again, see previous scene with the Force healer. So she believes that 100%. So I guess she does the next best thing she can do. I guess gives him a Dear John letter basically, and leaves him and leaves Yavin and says he's got to stay and she'll find him later. So ow, burn.
Yeah. So while I knew Bix had to go, I think this may be worse than killing her off because of the impact it's going to have on Cassian. And we'll see what the time jump for the next series of episodes. But we know that Cassian's pretty dark and willing to kill and has a very hard edge to him at the beginning of Rogue One. So this may kind of push him to just fully embrace that part of the rebellion. But yeah, I just did not see them being willing to have her just walk out. I thought they were going to kill her off. But I guess that leaves her open to do something else later, maybe.
Yeah, because like we kind of thought last podcast, yeah, maybe her and Mon's cousin, whose I'm blanking on now.
Vel,
Yeah, they could go off and do their own like spy team series or whatever. So or novels or whatever. So yeah, there's still opening right now that they could do something somewhere out there in the Star Wars universe. Yeah.
And get I always get her name wrong. Is it Clea? To
Yeah.
be their handler, So you've
Yeah.
got
Yeah, we did our own
birds.
a little Charlie's Angels riff last time. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking Birds of Prey, but there you go.
Yeah,
We'll go that route.
that too. Yeah. Although maybe she'll show up next 3 episodes here, and she'll because she has to warn Cassian about something, and she gets killed, and then that to your point, then he's like, okay, blah, that's it. I'm in now, or something like the Empire will kill her or something, right? And then that's it. I'm gonna take you guys down, right? And off
I'm all in.
Yeah. And before Cassian can run to the ship and try to chase her down or do something else rash, he gets called to the main base where they're done reprogramming the KX droid that he somehow dragged off the thing onto his ship. Anyway.
Well, it was half lighter.
So. Yeah. You do it in pieces. It's great. And after some kind of really funny moments from the technician and all the assembled rebels, who anytime the thing twitches are like pointing like every weapon on Yavin at at K2SO, he gets activated, and a new friendship begins. Well, not yet, but I'm sure we'll see it next year in the final 3 episodes.
So we swap out the girlfriend and upgrade to a droid that can cover you in the field. So, huh?
Yeah, I mean, is that really an upgrade or not? We'll see. But as we know in the movie, yes, it definitely was an upgrade. So
Yeah, from a tactical standpoint, absolutely.
yeah,
From a homemaking standpoint, probably not. But
I mean, I don't know. He's been reprogrammed. I mean, could he do light housekeeping? I don't know. Maybe.
house is cooked. I don't know. The Alan Tudyk version's definitely not going to be a good cook. So
Yeah, he'll have a lot to say about it. Yeah, if he does. Yeah. All right. So is there anything else we didn't really talk about that we should cover? I guess we've kind of made some predictions and thoughts about next time, but want to try to think who makes it all the way out of this season, apart from the people we know about, obviously like Cassian, K2SO, Krennic, Mon Mothma, and Bail Organa, because we've seen them in other projects here. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have an opinion either way. I mean, I can see some of them not making it, but I'm sure I'll be surprised anyway if any of them get killed or don't killed at this point, because it's like it's all wide open at this point.
so another character we know that makes it out, but we may or may not see again is Saw Gerrera, right?
That's
I
true.
mean,
Yeah.
he's still out there for Rogue One, but there's definitely some stories to tell between where we last saw him huffing space fuel and and where he ends up with his robot legs and stuff on. I can't pull the name of the planet he was on, but either way, yeah, we'll see him show up. But yeah, the other character I think we have to see die is Deidre. Um, she's too ambitious, right? She would have shown up somewhere outside of this show if she lived, unless the events on Ghorman just really affect her and something goes off. I expect that sometime in the next 3 episodes she's gonna get taken out.
Yeah, or maybe I guess we keep thinking, somebody should join the Empire, should join the rebellion, right? Maybe she does. Maybe after all this stuff, she flips finally. She's like, you killed my lover. The guilt of probably millions of Gormanites being affected. Maybe she flips. I mean, maybe she helps with the whole Bothan thing. I don't know.
Would that make her Fulcrum version 1?
Yeah,
Yeah.
could be. Yeah, pre Ahsoka. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Between Mon Mothma's speech and everything, are we gonna have more defectors seen, or is this kind of just we're just gonna keep the team we have and go?
Yeah, I mean, guess we'll find out.
Yep, only 3 to go. Which, speaking of which, so next time we'll go into the final year of Andor season 2, or the next 3 episodes, however you want to define it, with episodes 10 through 12. Uh, like I said before, we're sorry to see it go. Uh, Maybe we'll revisit the early rebellion years in some future show. We've already given you a couple of great plot ideas for future episodes, future series, but who knows? Maybe we're done with pre Star Wars movies and now it's all the post stuff. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah,
Except the
maybe we need to do
Mandalorian
a
and
rewatch of.
Grogu and all that stuff. But otherwise, yeah, who knows?
Yeah, maybe you and I need to go do a rewatch of Rogue One. That'd be an interesting capstone to this show.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch Rogue One after I watch the end of Andor, just so I can see,
Yes.
because I've heard that they've redone something in Rogue One to tie it to Andor. So I'd be
Oh,
curious to see what that is. Is it in the beginning, at the end, somewhere in there? It's probably the beginning, like maybe some better handoff between where Andor ends and Rogue One starts, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to stay spoiler free like you are at this point, which is getting kind of hard, but I've managed to. It's kind of died down a little bit, so I'm kind of good of not catching something. So we'll see.
yeah. Well, we're free to go watch the next 3 now. So
Yep.
there we go.
Yeah. Might be this weekend's project. We'll see. All right. And with that, that's your homework, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.